Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Iowa soccer supporters. I'm Ben Brackett, your Soccer Talk co-host, alongside my good buddy and pal, Blake Siebers. Siebes, what's up?
Man, it keeps getting nicer and nicer out the more pods we do. Hopefully this is a sign for the next couple weeks.
As a true weatherman, you are just always influenced by the weather, aren't you?
I am. If you're not in a good mood, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, we're here reviewing a little action from the first round of Substate and the boys 4A side here locally. We took in the Lincoln Rail Splitters as they hosted the Waukee Warriors. We are here with the Titan tactician, Matt Sahag. Matt, what's up?
Hey, guys.
So this is a YouTube channel plug. Subscribe. I'm assuming the Titan will have some clips. Not sure because we didn't even talk about it in our pre-pod meeting. But also sign up for the golf outing, Kick It Forward golf outing here in a few weeks.
We'd love to see it.
It's nothing serious. It's fun. It's not a lot of golfers, but it's fun more than anything.
Especially for you high school programs where you'll put in a long, hard shift and it's end of the season. Could be a good little time for the staff. And we got some Bondurant Blue Jays coming, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Cookie, well done.
Yeah, I love that. So then let's just talk a little bit quickly. Let's just jump into the game first, and then we'll look at all the substates here in a little bit. How's that sound?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would preface this game with, which is a very interesting topic, is these two teams just played on May 9th. So they played on the 14th.
So about less than a week ago.
Yeah, so they knew they were going to play each other in this, quote, play-in game. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But I think that's got to be a topic, or it's got to be discussed in some way, shape, or form.
I think it's interesting, too, regardless. When you talk about you called it the play-in game. I was just looking through all the substates in summer. You got some groups of 4, some groups of 5. Obviously, there's a lot of logistics that go into it. We talked about, did we talk about the board last episode from our trip up north, or do we not get to talk about that?
We did not.
So let's do a quick buzz on that. Yeah. So we got to go on a little trip, Matt, last week to visit. We went up to Boone and visited the Iowa High School Athletic Union, Iowa High School Athletic Association offices after we had met with the Iowa Girls Association
Union.
God, it's so confusing. That was basically what I took from that day, though, spending time with both those organizations, is that they are competitive with each other and they are definitely not the same. But regardless, we went up there and hung out, and we got to actually see the war room where they're making the sub-state pairings throughout the state. And so it's like this whole, I don't know, it's like a detective's office or something, right?
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I think it was something that they should promote a little bit and market, because they've got the maps. They've got different colored push pins for what sub-state people are in and different classes. And I think I can say, like, there is a crazy amount of time, work, and effort put in by the Boys Association to make the sub-state pairings what they are. And obviously everybody can argue whatnot, you have it, but it definitely was an eye-opener. And I think it would be cool for them to do some kind of documentary on how teams get put to different places.
Maybe that's something for us to work on for next year, Siebes.
It feels a little bit like, you watch the NCAAs, the selection Sunday, when you're waiting for the 5 o'clock show or whatever on CBS every year. And it comes out, and inevitably some people are like, oh, the committee, they're so stupid. They're, they just put this together, and they start talking about a little bit and those guys have been up for, a couple of days just trying to put it all together. That's from what you guys had said, what it feels like. At least that's what the work seems like that those associations are going into.
Yeah, for sure. It was interesting to see them be able to explain things too. Like, you're saying, okay, well, in one class there were 3 teams that were all 0-13 or something. They were defeated, if you will, and winless. And they were all pretty close to each other geographically. And so you can't put them all in the same sub-state. They had to find ways to move them around so that it was somewhat fair. And it happened with some of the top ranked teams too. So I don't know, pretty interesting overall.
It was, yeah. Again, super cool. It would be.
Well, otherwise you'd have
me.
I mean, maybe stating the obvious, but otherwise you could have a sub-state with the top 3 teams in the state if they're all in the same region, right? And then so 3 out of 4, and then all of a sudden only one team goes through and the whole tournament's out of whack.
Yeah,
especially in these smaller classes, right, where there's a lot of rural schools. You don't want somebody driving across the state. So you got, I mean, it's a science, and I think it was just a cool thing to see and hear briefly talked about. And I think there's some opportunities to promote, show, and kind of get behind the scenes, like you said, Matt. The Selection Sunday, that's what it reminded me of.
Also, just a quick chime in. We were looking at up there. They had the number of teams in each bracket: 4A, 3A, 2A, and one of the lower brackets is supposed to have 48 teams. And Blake, how many do they have?
I mean, 47.
Yeah, and we were like, "Wait, what's up with that?" And just if you've been listening to the pod, was it Clark County? Clark County
has friends down in Osceola.
Yep, Clark County they'd received 4 red cards throughout the season and had their season had been suspended. So whatever class that is, whether it's 1A or 2A, only they're one shy of a full load this year.
Did Harding make it through? Are they good?
So far, yeah. He still has to navigate the Substate.
To be played still.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that. It was one of those we were wondering if it's actually happened. And Chris Cuellar up there, and also, we should also quick shout out to Chris Cuellar up there at the High School Athletic Association, and then Chad, whose last name is Ellsbury. There you go.
Doors are always open up in Boone. The door is always open.
Yeah,
so.
It was really fun going up there. So we'll definitely go up again. We'll take you up sometime, Matt. I think you'll like it. Anybody wants to join us, we'll find a way to go to What You Spoken Barbecue, and maybe we'll play some golf too. All right, let's get to the game. We just chatted there. Hopefully you guys are still with us.
What do you guys make of this, them playing each other less than a week before and then knowing they got to play again in a game that actually matters?
I think it happens all the time in sports, right? I mean, it happens every weekend in golf.
It definitely makes it more interesting. Yeah, in golf, good one. But no, I mean, you're right though. Like, I think that the reality is, I always enjoyed playing teams more than once. Gives you another go at them.
How would you guys set your team up, knowing you're going to play somebody? I'm just curious from a personal point of view. What would you guys do?
I mean, to me, it depends on how confident you are in your team. If you're confident, you just play the same way. That's what I think. I'm less inclined to. I would be less inclined, I think, just to play these games. Like, I don't want to show you my stuff. You've already got 10, 15 games in your belt. All these games are televised. So I think people know who your players are. So I mean, I think if you want to rest guys, maybe that's one thing. But if it's just kind of like hide your team secrets, I don't really buy into that.
I think a really good team probably has, maybe 2 or 3 different ways they can play. Maybe one way when they're going to try and be on the front foot, maybe one that's a little more defensive. Maybe they've got a little bit more of a combative team that they'll put out there, but they've got different ways to play. So, like, I don't know. Hopefully that comes into the picture as well. And I guess that's sort of maybe the tale of the game, right? Perhaps a little foreshadowing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Well, the first game, so Waukee won the first one, right?
That's correct.
It was a shootout.
Yeah.
Correct. I mean, you can argue either side, right? That you could say the team with momentum, or the team who wins has got the momentum going into the second game, or you could say it gives them a little bit of a false confidence, especially if the first game is overwhelmingly in one team's favor. I didn't watch the first game, but I would have to think that Waukee went into the game on Monday or Tuesday, whatever night they played, thinking they were going to win. Did they play Monday or Tuesday?
It was
Tuesday.
The 14th.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that matchup was where? Was that home or away?
The first
It was
one?
at Waukee Stadium.
So I think that
now
maybe
it's a county of the Drake.
Yeah, so I wonder if that plays into it at all.
Turf
versus grass, which that's just one of those things with the just overall in high school soccer. You it's never going to be a consistent surface, right? I think that's something you just sort of deal with.
Yeah, right. It makes a big difference, though. You know, like depending on, I think the size of some of those turf fields too are just massive, and then you get on county, which I've heard is very, very narrow right now. So I heard that there's only 2 yards. The way they have it marked out right now, there's only 2 yards on either side of the 18-yard box between the 18-yard box and the touchline. It's that thin. It's that narrow right now, which it's much wider like usually. So like I had heard that they're playing on a 68-yard wide field at county right now. Compared to Waukee, I don't know what it is, but I bet it's wider there.
That would make sense. The team, they played in the old Drake Stadium, and the team benches were on like the press box side, which is I've never seen that. So that could be a result. I don't know. It could be the result of keeping people off. You know how everybody loves to sit on that side, kind of in their lawn chairs at the state tournament, especially. I wonder if that's. I don't know. It's just that's interesting.
Yeah, a lot that goes into it. I don't know. I mean, I think it's also the more you change the way you play, like it all depends on your team too. Like if they're capable of taking like, hey, today we're going to try something totally new. What do you think? Some teams and have players that can do that and can just like go like, oh, you want me to you stay wide more, and then you've got kids, like that just doesn't register with them. So you got to figure out how that works. And I mean, I think we're thinking a little bit from the Lincoln standpoint, but from the Waukee standpoint, if you're Ryan Sander, like how are you dealing with that?
What?
Well, you've already won. You've won. Yeah. So like
you got to get you're also up for it.
I mean, gosh, Waukee's ending the season at 5-11. I just always think of Waukee as kind of like a top team. With the split, they've just sort of seemed to have gone downhill a little bit. At least, I mean, if they're losing to in the first round of Substate, like that's not what I would normally associate with Waukee soccer.
It just depends on the lines they're drawn, right? I think we saw it with Centennial and the Ankeny Hawks for the first few years too, right? It took a little. I mean, Centennial kind of had the better side for for the last 5 years or so, whatever it's been, and now the Hawks all of a sudden catch up. I think maybe Waukee just is on a down year, or maybe they're going to be on a down couple of years. Who knows? Just because of how the lines are drawn in the city. But it's still a relatively small suburb, and so when you go into 2 high schools, it's just going to be naturally difficult. But I still think that there's a stigma to, being on one of these CIML, right? The intercity teams.
Yeah, they're called the Iowa Alliance Conference now.
Iowa Alliance Conference. I mean, I think any team, any suburb team, any Ankeny team, any Johnston team, Urbandale, Waukee, if they're going to play a Des Moines team, I think this is my assumption. I could be wrong, so let me know if you think I am. I think every team goes in expecting to beat North, East, and Roosevelt, Lincoln, Hoover, and Roosevelt. Yep. And those teams have actually, I think, proved those assumptions wrong in a lot of ways this year.
Well, look,
because they've had a really strong season. The Des Moines teams have.
Yeah, and I think you look at it, soccer is the #1 participant sport for the Des Moines public schools. So you're going to get, assuming that you're going to get some decent players, but jump into the game.
Yeah,
I mean, first half, like if you want to waste 40 minutes, watch that first half.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot going on that first half. It was pretty disjointed. And when I say disjointed, I mean like literally, like the attackers, there was like a big gap on both teams with it was like a half court basketball game almost, where the attackers were sort of slow to get back and the back four were slow to get up, and you see not a lot of midfield play.
Yeah. I mean, I actually I turned it on, and then the other issue was you couldn't see the field very well because of the lighting and stuff. So I actually lost interest pretty quickly, and I actually decided to go in a different direction for what I was going to look at today for today's pod.
I love it.
Instead of the game, because I watched that and I was like, I can't see what's going on. So I thought to myself, well, I'm a little more interested in this next matchup, which is going to be who the winner of that game is going to play Johnston.
We'll explain why though. Like, so they link it. We got one they played at County. County does not have a camera system, unlike MediaCom, right? MediaCom's got one set, sweet little thing, shows a scoreboard. So you go back to the players videoing it, and for some reason, the Lincoln players decided to put the camera looking straight west into the sun, and it's a 7 o'clock kickoff. So you can imagine,
it's kind of like our podcast.
It's a great sunset, except you can't see.
We don't want to be seeing that.
So can we talk just briefly then, like?
Well, yeah,
about
let's
the game.
Good. No. Talk about the game. I've got a little bit of different twist on maybe an outlook for the next game.
No, that's fair, and you can comment on what you thought here. But I mean, I think the teams went at halftime 0-0, and it was I don't know. There were some chances for sure for Lincoln in the first half. There were very few chances for Waukee.
That Waukee should have been up 1-0.
Really?
Yeah. On the one end, they missed it, but I think they should have been up 1-0 at half, in my opinion. I think Lincoln should have been very happy to be 0-0 and not behind.
Fair enough.
Soccer's a game of opinions. I love it.
No, I just don't. I don't think either team was that good. That's all. And maybe I think if you look at the majority of the chances or the majority of the play was carried by Lincoln, and just not very well. It wasn't super organized. It wasn't super. It was like I said, disjointed. And so then when we get to the second half, it looked like maybe there were some changes made, at least in just sort of personnel and where people were playing. I don't know if it was really a shape change. Was it, Blake?
I think you got maybe. I don't know. You could argue. It's just hard though, right? To see.
Yeah, I would. It just looked like there was more midfield presence from Lincoln in the second half. They were connecting some more passes. And I guess honestly, it was more notable defensively because people were actually getting behind the ball. And there was a moment at a certain point in the game where they had all 11 players behind the ball. It was in the second half, and they were all in their defending half, and they looked really difficult to break down. And Waukee, on the other hand, still had their back four dropped off all the way at half, and it was just sort of like, ooh, like this is. There's definitely a big difference here. Something's going to give at some point. And then ultimately that's what happened. Was 10 or 15 minutes into that first half. Again, I'm going to just criticize Waukee. Like the defending was not very organized.
So I'll go back though. So this is so the goal though, the pass. You guys talked about it. You guys kind of both got super excited the last couple of podcasts about a penetrating pass. The pass from Lincoln's, I think maybe is right back, eliminated 4 or 5 Waukee players went to the target. And then, yes, it got laid off, crossed. Sander, like they clearly haven't watched him clear a ball because he would have cleared it. They struggled with it, right? Kind of about like you said. Yeah, my point was
it was multiple times. It was multiple.
The first ball though into the target eliminated 4, maybe even 5 Waukee players. It was a forward penetrating pass, and like there you go. And that's what ultimately.
Well, yeah, put Waukee under pressure.
Yeah,
and they didn't. I mean, and I think that's something at this level of soccer. Like sometimes the difference between manufacturing a chance out of like really good play or creating a chance just from being direct and putting the ball in a dangerous place and being opportunistic. Like those are two really different approaches, but I think they're both effective. And I mean, I think that's sort of what they get a ball in the box, and it must have gone back and forth. There must have been 3 or 4 different changes in possession before Lincoln broke through and slipped a pass. Good finish. They go up 1-0.
Then Waukee, I mean, it's natural, right? Well, I think Waukee then grabs the game a little bit and was better, which kind of either 2 things happen a lot of times. Either they get second goal happens right away, right? Benny, this is your first 5 minutes after whatever happens, important event. But I think Waukee figured out, like, okay, guess what? We're in a game now. We got to figure it out. They did. They unfortunately they couldn't get anything in, but I thought they were better right away after that goal. Just couldn't come up with anything.
Fair enough. Lincoln ends up having a chance called back for offside, and then they end up scoring with like next to no time left. And
did see that play called back for offsides. It's actually pretty good stuff from Lincoln.
All right,
And
here's the
very
debate.
Close.
Here's the debate.
Very close.
do you
Because
have
me and
this
Ben
clip?
differed on the offside or not.
I've got it, but our cameraman would have to be able to flip my screen because I was sent it, but it's like it showed up the wrong way.
Well, we here in the studio have looked at it a few times. I actually didn't. Initially I only watched it the once, and I thought just like snap judgment, like ref's in a reasonable place. Yeah, if he's off, he's off. But Blake, you informed me after many reviews, perhaps, that you were able to discern that it was definitely onside.
It was, but again, like you said, the lino was actually in a good spot.
Yeah.
And it is. It's so quick, boom, boom. And it was, it was still, he was in line, but it's on the far half of the field, right? So he's already 40 yards.
And it was tricky because he was beyond his defender, the player that was called off, but there was another defender that was, I think that's who was holding him on ultimately, was even with him or whatever. So regardless, I mean, that's part of the game, right? So they don't take that chance. But then, so I actually watched the last 10 minutes pretty closely for whatever reason, probably just ignoring my work emails or something. And it was amazing to me, the lack of urgency and sort of like coherent attack from Waukee. It didn't look like they were super together. And I don't know, just like, a little worried about it because it's like, man, these kids should be fired up and running around and concerned about the end of their season. And Lincoln just, seemed to be able to kind of absorb their attacks, hoof it long, hold on, and then they end up getting a goal late to win it. So,
well, I mean, you got to give Lincoln a little pressure then, right? Give Joey a little pressure, Ben. I mean, maybe it's just that Lincoln's the better side. And Waukee was good too,
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, and it all honestly, both teams look tired as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's true or not. Is it you're tired or you're not together? But Lincoln definitely looked like the winning team at the end of the game.
Yeah. Well,
so what are they going to do? You've got Johnson, the defending champions.
Right.
I mean, I imagine they're going to, in their head at least, Johnson's planning to steamroll, right?
So totally right.
What do you think, Dragon Boy?
There's not a lack of confidence in the Johnson locker room. We know that, right? Are they ranked number 1 in the state right now?
I'll tell you.
Yes, they are.
And then you've got
the rankings came out after the last week. Rankings came out after the substates were already posted, which is interesting. But
I mean, yes. I think they would probably be the most confident in the state team in the state, even if they were, number 10 in the state. Because I just think that's how they play, and that's what they have about them. I think that's a large part of why they won the title last year. But that's what I was interested in. I'm actually, I mean, no insult to Waukee or anything, but I'm pleased that Lincoln beat them. I love to see the Des Moines teams have some success, and I love the success that a lot of these teams have had this year, including North and Roosevelt as well.
And Hoover in 3A.
And Hoover in 3A as well. So it's good to see the Wayne Metro team's making a little bit of comeback here. So I'm rooting for Lincoln here, especially in the Johnson game. So
you're rooting against the Dragons again. You would just love giving those boys some material.
Well, that's a good
what kind of
material?
Segue,
Blake,
some poster board?
Yeah, so I would love to
some whiteboard material.
I'd love to give them some material. So what I did was I actually went on the old Huddle account or the internet, and I just typed in Johnston boys soccer games, and I tried to find myself some video to see if maybe I could see a little bit how Johnston was playing this year. And so up popped the Valley Johnston game. And so
the game they lost.
Which is the game they lost and got thumped in. So I think it was 3-0, right?
Let's go Tigers.
So that's what I kind of looked at because, I mean, honestly, Lincoln's got a big mountain to climb. I think 9 times out of 10, I think Johnson's going to win the game. Just not because Lincoln doesn't have it in them, but I think
Johnson's
Lincoln
probably that good.
They're better. I think they have more confidence, and that's a big factor too. I think the Lincoln boys will go into that game lacking confidence internally, whereas Johnson will come in overconfident, and so it's going to take some time, I think, for Lincoln to kind of ease into the game a little bit. But once they get going, I still think they've got a chance, and I think they've got a chance because of the way Johnson plays and because of the way Lincoln plays. I don't think Lincoln is as good as Dowling or even close to being, but I would say that Lincoln tries to play in terms of putting the ball on the surface, and it's got more skillful teams as compared to like a Dowling would have skillful players. I'm not equating the talent level because I think Dowling's much better, but whereas Johnston's got big brute strength. Right. And they set up to play that way.
Well, I saw something. I was reading. This is funny. I was reading the Black and White, which is the student newspaper
for
Johnston.
Okay.
So Mateo, butcher's last name, remember the boy that scored the unbelievable bicycle. So he was out, I believe, for the Valley game. And old Pope did not play either for the Valley game. He was hurt as well. So I think there was there might have been a sending off too in that game as well for Johnston.
In the first 8 minutes?
Might have been against Valley.
But in the first 8 minutes of the game?
I don't know.
Because that's when the first goal came. And then in the first 20 minutes of the game? Because that's when the second goal came. So I love that you're coming to defend the Dragons here. Personnel was off the field, red card. What else, Blake? Make some more excuses for your team.
Well, let's just pull us up, show us how they play. Let's get this up. Let's get this going because Seabreeze doesn't have any defense over here.
So, all right, I was all ready to go, but now you need to fill for me.
Oh, weird. Be interesting. I'm curious to see the antics on the sideline between the two coaches.
Between Joe and Frizzell?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think it'll be much.
Well, just after we saw Joey in his I saw him go after the linesman a little bit in that game.
All right, so this is what I saw. So Johnston, to me, they play in 3-5-2. Right. And so here's this Valley game. If you see the bottom left-hand corner, it says
1750.
You know what?
2-0. Different. Wrong clip.
It's 2-0. So this is not the goal, but this is just a I don't actually know what this is.
Well, why don't you
this is not the goal. So all I'm showing this for is because this is how they set up. So they're just coming into a goal kick, but see how they're all walking back?
They're in white.
Yep, Johnson's in white. And so the ball is going to get kicked now. But look how tight their back three are. You've got your bouncing midfielder out right. That's come all the way back and tucked in a little bit. And then where Mateo usually played, I think he played last year, they've got their player right there. So they're basically in the diamond at the back. And oftentimes their bouncing midfielder doesn't drop as deep. So if you see number 13 on the left-hand side of the field, he's on the 40-yard line, he's pretty high up the field. And quite honestly, he doesn't have to be too far up the field right now because Valley's player isn't really making him go anywhere. But Johnston drops into this tight diamond all the time. And I think that's notable for a number of reasons I'll get into. But so here's the goal kick. So watch there. All right. So if you watch that there, all they've done here is get in a position to win the ball facing forward with their holding midfielder number 6. So I think I've just
is he a holding midfielder or a number 6?
Well, I'm calling him both because that's what the people call him today. It's number 6. But I want to speak a different language. So here's what I think about this picture right here. And I think this is where teams can think about hurting Johnston a little bit more. First of all, that Mateo is incredibly athletic, right? And he's strong and he's good in the air. So is this player, the holding midfielder right here too. So
is that Enoch, Ben?
No idea. I'm sorry. It's really hard to tell.
I don't know why you play the ball in the air if you don't have to. But if you're going to, I mean, why not get more players around the ball? So Knipsu is a little higher up there, right? Watch how the ball comes into their number 6, and then he's really not challenged either. So I think teams start to play into Johnston's favor when they don't actually make that diamond work very hard because they're not players around the ball. So that's the first clip I've got for you.
That's actually, I like that. Very informative.
Do you like that?
I do, honestly.
Okay.
No, I'm
right.
serious.
So
I think, and
Would
honestly,
you not go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
I was just going to say, honestly, I like the way they set up. It looks like they have an intentional way of playing.
Johnston.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I do. I mean, that's why I was just going to ask, like, is there, because they play, I mean, I think would you play on that goal kick on this clip? I mean, Johnston's actually, I think, done a decent little job of their shape.
I do too. I think that's why they're, I mean, based on how it is, I mean, number one, we know Knipsu is the danger of our valley, right? So they've set up in a way, this is the second clip, but I mean, let's watch it real quick because this is another goal kick, right? So look again, they've set up tight in a diamond here based on where they think the ball's going to land. And there's a screen in front of Knipsu so he doesn't get the ball. And then there's two players marking him. Now, I think that's overkill because I don't think you need 4 marking 1. But what I'd say is if you're a team playing against Johnston, I mean, I think you've got to make it more difficult for them here, right? Like look at Valley's players down by the 30-yard line. We know this ball is not going to land anywhere near the 30-yard line. It's not going to land near the 40-yard line. So why not move players up the field where the ball is going to be won? Now, I'll tell you that we can't criticize Valley too much because this leads to a goal. So here's the
I want to see how teams match up to play man to man. That's how, I feel like that's how the game is play man to man. Figure out how to.
Wide. Ball gets crossed in, and there's the goal, right? Really good goal by Valley. So the reason I picked this is because I think this is a good example of how to beat how Johnston plays. And unfortunately for Johnston, their left back has a little bit of a nightmare here because he's the one who gives the ball away. But so they get their starting passes or positions in real tight. And then, I mean, look at this punt or goal kick. By the way, remember when I said it wasn't going to land anywhere near the 30-yard line?
It's the other 30-yard line.
Yeah.
That was a bomb.
So it is a bomb. It takes the left back even further.
And you said this is early in the game, right? So maybe you haven't worked out that you should be dropping way deeper as a team. But.
Right. But I mean, for me, it's more than that, right? Because I think when you look at how tight they are together, if you're a team trying to break them down, you've got to think about where the space is, right?
Well, that's what Valley finds.
It's the space and or how to take them out of their shape. And I think there's 2 ways to do it. We know where the gaps are. They're wide because look at number 13 as well. He's on the 40-yard line for Johnston. He's not. If I'm defending and I'm Johnston, I want him on an angle towards that Tiger, pretty much where the referee is.
That Tiger, when you have 3 in the back.
That Tiger is at center field, by the way. That's what he's referencing.
Based on where Johnston's right back is right now as well, I also want, I don't know. You've got an option here because look at Johnston's balancing midfielder as well at the 50. So I don't think the right back is communicating to him very well because I think he should be goal side. But anyway, here's the ball comes in. It's not a good header, but my point is it breaks them out of their shape because look where the holding midfielder is now. As it passes him, he's got to come and get it. All right. So as Valley's got the ball here now, all of a sudden now you've taken the screen and you've brought him out of his shape, right? Which means there's a pass that can hurt Valley in front of their back 3, and that's exactly what happens. So the ball gets played in here. Look, you can see him. He tried to win the ball. And if you freeze it here now all of a sudden you're 3v3 at the back. One of the Johnson players is going to have to commit to the ball. And because the space is all wide, all you have to do now is exploit the space. So watch the right attacker for Valley peel out It's only a little bit. The left back for Johnston's looking at the ball. All of a sudden, he wrong foots him. And now you've got Johnston stretched all the way across the field. And here comes the pass back in, and you got a great finish in there too. So I think the key here is for Johnston, if you're playing against him, you've got to bust open that shell with the 4 at the back. And I think that's exactly what Valley does in that second goal.
Well, so for Johnston to counter that, it's maintaining discipline, right? If the holding player there, the holding midfielder doesn't, even if he needs to step out, if instead he stays home, that doesn't happen. And then when it's 3v3 at the back, if the left back, if everybody stays with their guy and you just delay, almost a lot of times, right, Blake, what the best thing to do as a defender is nothing. Is just sort of maintain your shape and keep keep the protection going. Don't let him penetrate you and let guys get behind the ball.
Well, I think that's that right wing back was not goal side. I think, Matt, you brought it up, but that's even more of an important issue because the right center back, whatever you want to call it, didn't bark at him. His starting position was too high. If he just gets goal side, the holding midfielder doesn't have to go step. You've got a guy in front of it, and you're, again, like you said, Ben, you just settle, you're fine. Like, they can't go forward.
Yeah. I think some of the best holding players and the best defenders, that's what sets them apart is they know when to step and when to stay. And I think that just, in that scenario, when you're in trouble, a lot of times the answer is actually stay.
I also think, though, here's like the whole key, though, to me is getting these these players like in these holes, right? There's a hole there, and then even before that, there's, let's see here. The first one. So if you look here, I mean, here Johnson's in their shell, right, with their 4 there. And so for me, the whole key is you've got to take this guy and bring him out.
That's the holding player.
And that's so and suck him out. And so I think you do that a couple of different ways. One of which is playing little balls, even though I'd like this guy. I mean, we'll just say this is not the sequence of the game, but let's say Valley's the X here. I'd get up against him and play passes in here to get him to commit. So then you can go in for the next one, right? I think that's that's part of the key. The second one then is exactly what Valley does.
I was going to say,
which is they bring him out, right? And when you play the ball in the gap in here, which is what they did. So anyway, so that's how I think one of the keys to beating Johnston. So I've got kind of just like an idea. I don't know if teams that are scouting Johnston would be interested at all in playing this way. Maybe it could be a huge failure, but what I haven't seen a team play in like 3-4-3 this season at all. And so if you think about how Johnston plays, right, they've got a center back who sits deep. They've got then a left back and a right back who sit close together. And then they've got a holding midfielder who basically plays like this, right? I think where they get weak is here with their outside midfielders when they don't track back. And so you've got these massive gaps sometimes.
Well, so it's track in and then also back, right?
Yeah, depending on where the ball is. But I think just generally you've got big gaps here, right? So in a lot of instances. So what I was thinking is if a team would actually go 3-4, if you'd actually go 3 here and just go man to man on these guys, and then you could play with your 4 and then 3 at the back. But and you could just have these guys interchange. But what my idea would be, occupy the back three, play up high against them, and then start playing little passes in, like here to suck this guy out. And then these guys can start making runs, or maybe this guy runs across and this guy peels out something. But I think you could really wreak havoc on Johnston's back three if you matched up 1-versus-1 with him. But
I think
when everybody thinks about three up front, you always think 4-3-3. And 4-3-3 is always, when we watch it, I always watch players play incredibly wide out. So you're like all the way across the field. And so what happens, you end up playing in a straight line and there's no real depth. So I think playing players tight together in a three and having them make runs. Some people can come to the ball. Some people can crisscross. You can start to peel out wide. You can bring midfielders into the game. I think that could really wreak some havoc on Johnston's shape at the back there. And I also think that because of the way they play like that, I didn't see many balls go into strikers' feet for Johnston. And in fact, a lot of times there was just one player up there by himself because their other striker kind of went wide a lot. And so I think that a team could get away with just playing with 1-6, so to speak, and have the other central midfielder play a little bit higher. So that's just my outlook on the game. I don't know if Joey would ever play like that. I don't think he would, but that's just something I came up with. And I'm wondering if maybe there's a time when someone might want to try going man to man with Johnston's back three.
It's a risk.
Well,
right?
I like it though from your standpoint, Matt, because what you're ultimately doing is you're forcing those defenders to make decisions, because if they're all nice, if you're attacking trios nice and tight in there, and then you decide, well, one of them just decides to drift out wide, those two players still kind of occupy those three, and now all of a sudden there's a rogue, free player, and you're forcing whatever, left center back or whoever to make a decision. Am I going to go there and open a huge gap, or am I going to stay here? But when you play three attackers all the way, like with two really wide guys, a lot of times as a defender, it's sort of easy to sort of stay in your shell and say, okay, well, like if I anticipate properly, I can get out there and close it down.
And I'm going to have my wide guy run a little bit.
Correct. But if they start inside and it's clearly your player, it becomes it's a big challenge. Then all of a sudden they decide they're going to run 20 or 30 yards outside of your shell, and you go, well,
then what do you do?
And Frizz isn't going to bring like 4 or 5 guys back. He'll say, let's go 1v1, because guess what? We're going 1v1 it the other way. And you want to talk about an exciting game for a neutral. Yeah, those are the games that end 7-6, because it's just... It
might be, but so I think the key is on the attacking side is still it's the mobility of those front three, right? So if you're going to play with three like that, to your point, Ben, you've got to be crisscrossing. You've got to have one guy coming in deep. I also think then when you defend, just drop one of your three back into midfield.
Yeah, well, and that was what was so apparent to me in the Milwaukee Lincoln game, is that it was the disjointed piece was like, there were 2 or 3 players on each team that just weren't participating in the defending side of the ball. And it's just like, well, not the whole game, but at certain points. And it's like, I think at a game, like if you're playing Johnston, you have to have 11 players engaged for 90 minutes or 80 minutes or whatever it is.
And right, you got Leach. I think that's old Matty Wheels' nephew. Boy's good. You got Mateo back in there. If he's fully fit and healthy, he's 2 super athletic guys. You got Lamarck, who I think is a really good, I think Johnston's saying, bring it. We'll go 1v1 at the back again, because guess what? We've got Pope up top. We got some dynamic, and we go forward, right? Really quick. So when I saw them play Southeast Polk, literally the ball went from the goalkeeper's punt, a flick, ball in the back of the net, less than 4 touches, less than 10 seconds. And they're just so athletic and dynamic.
I haven't seen a team play yet this season, I think, with more than one player like high up and against like a center back. Even Knipsu plays 5 yards in off the center back.
That's new trend and new thing to do, though, Matt.
But I was going to say, Matt, is even if you go back to
in like at every level.
I think even go back to what you're saying though, Sahig, about the playing 3 right up against them. The other thing you could do is just play straight 4-4-2, and your 2 players sort of occupy their 3, and then if you have your wide midfielders going in, like pressing a little higher and going in behind, and sometimes knowing that they need to tuck in and defend. Yeah. It's the same idea, really. And I think that's like you've got a team like Johnson. At least at this point in the season, they're probably not changing the way they play from game to game. Maybe, in the semifinal or the final, they might make a couple of like tactical adjustments, but they're the kind of team that's going to say, this is the way we play. Our brand of soccer is good enough to beat anybody in the state every day of the week. But can you unbalance them, I guess, is the question. It's like, are you going to change the way you play to unbalance them? Do you think that Lincoln, if you're the coach, right, are you trying to change the way you play, or are you just saying, well, let's just stick with the same thing we've been doing? We're on a bit of a tear. They've won 7 games in a row or something.
Yeah, I think they're doing more of the same. If they're on a 7-game tear, and I think that's why Lincoln is dangerous for Johnston, because I think they actually have some players that can get into the holes in between Johnston's diamond there. And I think they can suck them out of it if they play. So like the offsides goal that we saw, right? That's some really, really good ball movement. So, but what I don't know is defensively on the ball, Lincoln's got 80 minutes in them to withstand the athleticism of like attack that's relentless.
And discipline.
And discipline too. I totally agree.
Well, an interesting test for the Dragons is the defending champions in their first round. We'll see if Lincoln can make some noise and get themselves to the Substate final. And then, if they do that, who's on the other side of the bracket? Like, let's just talk about the brackets quick. You were going to throw them up on the screen.
Yeah, this will be real interesting because I don't know if I've ever done this, but
okay, I think you can do it. Look at this, just straight away. Boom.
Okay.
So here we go. We've got the 4A Substate 1, which shows Lincoln having beaten Waukee. So you've got Johnston and Lincoln at the top end of the bracket. Sioux City East and Council Bluffs Lincoln on the bottom side of the bracket. Sioux City East and Council Bluffs both about 500, 9 and 8 each of them. So it'll be, which is interesting when then you look at Lincoln's record, they're 8 and 6. So you really have like a sort of a middle grouping playing against top ranked Johnston. Let's take quick predictions out of that one.
Oh, sorry, Ben. I missed our.
Do we think it's just Johnston all the way?
Yes, I think they.
Sioux City East or Council Bluffs.
Yeah.
Johnston.
All right, we think.
I'm rooting for you, Joe, but I'm sorry. I don't know that's going to happen this year. But here's one then. What if Lincoln pulls it out? Do we know it? Do you guys know anything about Sioux City East and Lincoln Council Bluffs?
No.
I don't either.
That's the challenge of some of this too.
Wouldn't that be great if Lincoln knocks off Johnston? Does that mean they could be at state?
Of course it does. That's how it works. Well, let's see. Let's take it one game at a time.
Look at Blake. I love how incredulous Blake looks. He's over there. He's just.
Johnson. They're healthy now too. Like they've got all their boys back.
I hate agreeing with Blake, but I do. I think the Drags roll as they tend to. I'm always rooting for the underdog. So let's say that. Let's go on to the next Substate, Blake. Substate 2. This is Waukee Northwest in the. So
let's talk about this a little bit because we'll talk about another Substate as well.
Okay.
So do you guys notice we haven't talked about this, but 2 Southeast Polk plays 3 in Des Moines North. Guess where it's at? Ankeny.
So you see that?
And notice, look at the time for that game at 5:30.
Yep.
Look at the time in the game for Substate number 6, 7:30 p.m. at Ankeny High School.
Interesting.
So, I don't know. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but evidently, because Southeast Polk, Des Moines North, there's a referee shortage issue. The game is at a neutral site at 5:30.
Interesting.
Almost as the undercard.
Yeah, that's disappointing. But I don't. what's the referee shortage piece? Like
There's not enough referees.
There's
right?
not
No, I
enough.
understand that, but like,
Because the same thing happens though in the Urbandale Substate, which
Got it.
is
Okay.
number.
I don't understand why it matters.
well, something
So look
like
at it. Here it is, 5:20, same day.
yeah.
Urbandale plays Waterloo West at 5:30. Valley plays
Well,
East at
how about this?
7:30.
This is what I would say. That makes sense to me because you're saying, okay, like we all play at we all play at the top seed site. Like that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
No,
if
it's not that way though in any other Substate.
I know, but I'm saying that makes like if they did it like that everywhere, that would make sense to me.
Correct. If they
But
did it everywhere, but they don't do it everywhere. They just pick 2 Substates. That's what I just think is an interesting.
It's interesting to know. I'm glad that you noticed that, Mr. Eagle Eye. Also, we also got done talking about how interesting the selection process was. So
we forgot something though, by the way. The location of Johnston Lincoln is not at Johnson High School.
that's correct.
That is at County
Correct.
because
Oh, the boys got
presidents know the sanctions.
got disciplined a little bit.
Wait, was that over the final?
Yes.
Uh,
So
I know we don't need to get in this debate again, but I mean,
Is Jimmy going to be able? I
That's
don't know. Is Jimmy coaching that game or is he
I don't know. We'll have to find out.
suspended?
so I had some comments obviously about like having a tidy bench and keeping your people under control. I mean, that was after they had already won the state final, right?
Correct.
And it was because the fans came on the field.
Correct.
And so Jimmy,
I think there was a little more there too, though. Discussion.
I thought-
Everybody's excited.
was it for some of the things some of them said to me?
It wasn't. But that was great. I can't wait for it this year again. But no, you're right, Matt. I mean, that is. I think that has to be an issue because it's now
huge.
played back at County. Lincoln, the ball. I mean,
I think
no excuses now, Joey.
I think Johnson is more match fit than Lincoln is, right?
Yeah.
If you were going to put those kids on a track, each team, the track meet would
Agreed.
get won by Johnson every day of the week, and so you put them on a fast surface when the ball moves and they're just moving up and down the field. Physically, I think Johnston has the advantage, so I think it's a big advantage for Lincoln to be at County.
All right, let's check out Substate number 2. Good point though, Eagle Eye. Thank you for noticing that. We'll ask the rankings committee or the
Well,
Substate
no,
committee.
it's the referee shortage.
Okay, great.
I'm just curious how they pick.
That's what I'm saying. We'll find out like how they select who gets shunted.
I mean, I know why. It's because it's Southeast Polk and North, and nobody cares about Des Moines Public Schools and the East Siders.
All right, so Northwest High School hosting Waukee Northwest hosting Sioux City North. So a bit of a hike for Sioux City North to come to town against the top ranked team. Then you've got Southeast Polk and Des Moines North on the bottom side of the bracket playing at Ankeny High School. I would love to see a Des Moines North upset over Southeast Polk. Sorry, Jacob Lucy. I think those North boys are a good little group, and we've always enjoyed watching them play and being around them. So I think also, interestingly, Southeast Polk, if I recall, they started the season 6-0. They are currently 8-7. So since that run, they've gone 2-7. Is that right, Blake?
Yeah, they played some good top 10. I think they lost to everybody in the top 10 except for one of their losses. But yes, Ben, you are.
So interesting to see if that's a positive for them, and they're battle tested, and so a team like North is an easy game for them, or maybe it's the other way around, and they're just sort of like dejected and beat down. Hopefully, that's not the case. So I don't know, Matt, who comes out of that bracket? What do you think?
Waukee Northwest.
Blake?
Northwest as well.
Yeah, I think even if it's a North versus Northwest game, Southeast Polk game, I think Waukee Northwest is probably too much. Substate 3, looks like Marshalltown and Mason City were in the quote play-in game. Marshalltown ran out 3-0 victors, and they'll come to Dowling Catholic here in West Des Moines, Windsor Heights area for a tough matchup, I would say. Then you've got Cedar Falls and Ames playing on the other side of the bracket at Cedar Falls. So I wonder if the penalty spot had anything to do with that site selection.
Same thing, right? No, Cedar Falls is high seed, though.
I know. I'm just teasing.
Oh, you think it got fixed?
That's a good question. So Cedar Falls, that'll be interesting. I don't think we've ever really seen them at the state tournament. So potentially I don't know. I mean, honestly, I've seen Dowling play so many times.
I mean, we got to talk about the big. I mean, a big injury, don't we?
We do. We should mention it at least. Jonathan Mendez tore his
Probably
ACL.
top junior in the state, arguably the top player in the state.
Yep.
People say maybe.
Super sad or frustrating, disappointing, whatever for him. I talked to him though the other night I called the Dowling Urbandale game, and he's already had surgery. He's already started rehab. He's in good spirits. So, I mean, stinks for sure, but like he's got a great attitude. So I think potentially it could be just the kind of thing that makes him a little stronger overall.
And if it gets there, Dowling did beat Ames 1-0 this year.
Interesting. Yeah, Ames always is a tough team in the substates. I mean, at least just my experience. I don't know about you. What do you think, Blake?
Ryan McGowan kind of took over the old Zamolik kind of reign.
Yeah.
Right? They are just not pleasant to play against. They have success.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. I don't see Dowling not getting back to the state tournament. They've got unfinished business from last year. What do you guys think?
Agree.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the game last year when they played. They went down to Iowa City West, and that was a pretty tight match, except for Michael Nelson. So, without him in the mix this year, to me, they're the best team I've seen this season, and so I think they're the favorite to win it, in my opinion. But we'll see.
Ooh,
Ben?
Although they've got a player down too, right?
I said Dowling, so
okay.
Yeah. So then let's go to Substate 4. This is maybe more east side of the state. So you got Iowa City West at the top seed against Dubuque Senior.
Well, Danny Rothert, can you pull it off, man?
The little Rothert ball.
Yeah.
And then you've got Dubuque Hempstead against Davenport North on the other side of the bracket. I don't know. It's just, again, like, and I don't like picking the 1 seeds all the way through, but Iowa City West is maybe
they played Hempstead earlier this year, Ben.
Yeah, and
smashed them 4-1.
I think Iowa City West is just their perennially a great team. Like, they are a winning team every year, no matter, I don't know, not no matter what, but almost no matter what, right? Like,
yeah, them not making it to county would be a shock.
It would. Coach Brad Stiles always does a good job with those guys. And, of course, Aaron Sheffield, shout out to him. I was just going to look and see who their losses were.
I mean, they beat Iowa City West. They beat Valley. They beat Cedar Falls.
They lost to Johnston.
They did just the other night.
Who else do we know?
That's it. Or no, I don't know. Ben.
They lost another game. Anyway, so that's not a bad loss to have. And, also that's the kind of game that, like, probably holds a little extra something. So maybe that's the kind of thing they hold on to, and that becomes the difference later on in the season. So, okay, I'm guessing Iowa City West comes out of there. Let's go to Substate 5, Blake.
Okay.
Maybe, if you want.
There
we don't have to. There we go. So you had Davenport Central knocking out Davenport West in the playing game. They'll take on Davenport, top-ranked Davenport, the 1 seed. And then on the bottom side of the bracket, you've got Muscatine coming to Pleasant Valley to visit old Wayne Ward.
I like this potential final.
I do. Yeah, Bettendorf, Pleasant Valley. I see that as probably the Substate final. And we know that Wayne Ward loves a little tactical battle
this year, don't you?
I'm sure they did. Can you tell me what happened?
Bettendorf 7. Pleasant Valley 2.
Ruh-roh.
I mean, early in the season, back in April, but that's definitely
talk about some poster board material.
Yeah.
Well, who's the new Bettendorf coach since Coach Penning left?
That I couldn't tell you.
I don't know the answer to that. I would be curious who that is, but without knowing that, so this is nothing against the Bettendorf coach because I just don't know who it is. But I'm going to give the edge to Wayne Ward, and I'm going to Pleasant Valley.
Pennington still is the boss.
I thought he retired. Didn't we go to his retirement thing?
No, he just got inducted to the Hall of Fame.
Oh.
Just because you get inducted doesn't
he's just a living legend. I'm sorry. I did not realize that. Okay, I'm still going. I would love to see a little upset here. I'm going to see Wayne Ward gets the boys together.
I think that'll be the game.
That's definitely one of the best matchups in the Substate final. What do you think, Matt?
I agree.
We'll see if Wayne Ward listens to the pod. I bet you if he does,
he definitely is.
He's gonna get I'm gonna get a text. Ooh, this one's. I
This
think
one's
this
good
one's tricky
too.
too. Yeah. Cedar Rapids Kennedy comes out of the bottom side of the bracket after beating Cedar Rapids Jefferson, and they will visit Ankeny at Ankeny. Ankeny, a number 1 seed at 9-8, which is interesting.
Wow.
That's their record. So they're ranked. Aren't they like
Number 8 now?
They're ranked number 8. So at the end of the season, Roosevelt was the top ranked or the bottom ranked, the 8th seed. Who went up? Do we know?
Who what?
Who bumped up? I don't know. Anyway, that doesn't matter. So Ankeny probably comes out of the top side of the bracket because they're playing a team that's 3-11 in Cedar Rapids Kennedy, and then on the bottom side you've got Linn-Mar and Prairie 9-6 and 8-7 respectively. We know that Prairie has.
So Linn-Mar beat Prairie earlier this year.
Oh wow!
But Kurt Lewis is. I mean, he's kind of built a little mini powerhouse down over there. You know, they've had, I think, quite a bit of success.
Yeah, agreed.
You know,
Totally.
the state tournament quite a few years, and
wouldn't surprise me to see him at the state tournament at all.
they have a middle school team, by the way, which is
they?
awesome. Yeah,
Nice. I mean, we saw Ankeny play. We saw them win their crosstown rivalry against Centennial. They're pretty good, but it was also a pretty even match. So, what do you think, Blake? Who comes out of that?
I think Landon Bench scores 7 goals in the semifinal and the final total, and I think they get through pretty easily.
Yeah, I think they've had they've played so many good teams all year. I would guess that they are ready for the challenge, and they'll give Trevor Fuccio a inaugural season state tournament debut, which good for old Trav. Substate 7 Siebes.
Arguably, the chatter is the most open substate, which is, I don't know, a slap in the face for Ream or not, but it is. Everybody's talking like Iowa City High. I think you got to talk a little about their coach too, Matt, but go ahead, boys.
Yeah, this is all sorts of action here. So Roosevelt as the number 1 seed at 11-4 will take on Ottumwa. And then on the opposite side of the bracket, Iowa City High will host Centennial in Iowa City. Centennial 5-11 on the year, which is the same record as Waukee, who we just talked about. They got knocked out with the Substate. So one of the bottom ranked teams, in the state. But also a team with some dynamic players, some winners, and a good coach there in Brian Duax. And obviously, honestly, Ottumwa's 9-3 too. What happened in
they played earlier this year?
I was going to say, what was the result there?
Roosevelt 3, Ottumwa 0.
All right, so let's assume Roosevelt's in the Substate final. I think Matt Ream will be excited at the one game, kind of a chance to go to the state tournament with one game to do it. What happens then? Let's talk about the 2 coaches for Iowa City High and Centennial, because that's one we know something about, right? Talk about Iowa City High, Matt.
Well, I mean, the only thing I know about them is they got 3 red cards.
Really?
Talk about Fajardo.
But
his resume.
Oh, sorry, that's Iowa City High.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
so
what you're talking about.
Liberty.
Sorry.
Yes. Sorry.
Oh,
City
I'm
High.
sorry. Yeah. So this is Jose's team.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so I don't know that a ton of people even know this, but I mean, I think their coach might be
the most accomplished.
Easily
player or coach, like in our entire state, having played at like one of the highest levels of anyone. And so I think it's pretty interesting. I think it's pretty cool that those guys have a coach with that pedigree playing for them.
Which is what, Spanish U20 national team?
Yeah, I mean, if you look up his resume and stuff like that, I hate to do a disservice, so I should probably just look it up.
So he has been there. We're talking about Jose Fajardo. I think that's how you pronounce it, but Iowa City High boys coach. He's been there for quite a while. But illustrious, I would call it a youth playing career, Matt. Is it youth is correct? Probably right.
Youth and pro career.
There you go.
So I'm just looking up. I mean, and Jose would know this better than
Weird.
Better than us, obviously, but I'm just trying to find an article of like all the different places that he's played. Hang on a second.
Here, I'm just got a little interjection to make on the. I'm curious. So I was just looking at the Roosevelt results because I was curious who they lost against this year. Bettendorf, Dowling, Lincoln, and then they lost their last game of the season on senior night against Norwalk, a 3A team. So I'm just wondering, like, what's the vibe? So they beat Ames 3-1 on the 1st of May. Then they lost to Lincoln. Then they beat Hoover 2-1. They beat Mason City.
Remember, we saw them play against North. That was the game of the week, maybe a month ago. And they have the one, I don't want to butcher his name, but the one boy,
I think it's Ephraim.
Yeah, Ephraim, okay, going forward, super athletic, dynamic.
They won 4-0 that game.
Remember, the game was over at halftime.
It was. First half.
But like you said, Ben, they've kind of, I don't know if they're trending downward right now, but.
Well, let's hope. They played a tumble early on in the season, so it'll be interesting. Matt,
all right, there's the filler, Matt.
Yeah, I've got some stuff. Hang on.
Atumwa, on the other hand, they've only lost 3 times this year. They lost to Newton 3-0, Roosevelt 3-0, and Hoover 3-0.
Yeah, that might be a little sneaky good game, I think.
Yeah.
This is probably do you want to call it the group of death Substate? Because there's
for sure.
Even though Centennial's like record's not good, they beat Johnston. They
record wise, right? Roosevelt should go through, but I honestly think, in any scenario, there's some scenario where any team could go through. Atumwa least likely, but I think Iowa City High and Yankee Centennial are going to be a tough game for Roosevelt.
Well, whoever gets out of this one, I think is going to be a little bit of a scary 8 seed, unless something happens in another Substate.
For sure.
If I'm the 1 seed, I don't know if I want to play the winner of this one. The first round of the real state.
No, not necessarily.
So top flight in Spain, so La Liga, right? That's where he played in the late 80s and throughout the 90s. And then he was a member of the Spanish national team for multiple years, including the under 20 World Cup squad in Spain. So
that's pretty cool.
That's quite impressive. I just don't know if like a ton of people know about that.
They don't. I know for a fact they don't.
Yeah, I mean, when you mentioned it
awesome
to me the other day, that was the first time I'd heard it. So, like, then on the other side of the bracket, local legend Brian Duax played for my Valley Tigers, and then at Drake as a Bulldog, and an excellent ball striker and a successful coach. He's got a couple boys in the program, and it's maybe he's probably looking at some of the potentially last times they all play together, right?
He's got the best business in town, Central City Liquors.
Sure does.
Shout that out for the high school pod.
They have 400 whiskeys, but yes, no Blantons today.
So I don't know on this one. I mean, I just haven't seen Iowa City High play. And I haven't seen Atumwa play. I have seen Roosevelt play. I don't know.
Did Centennial and Roosevelt play this year?
I don't know that they played each other or not. So this is kind of the most interesting bracket to me, quite honestly. Like I don't
know if you were listening. I said I think whoever comes out of this is going to be a little bit of a testy 8 seed.
Yeah.
Well, what do we have? Are we going to be definitive here?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Atumwa.
That's what I was going to pick too. I love the mini pitches. I'm going to bet with my heart.
Love it.
Bracket, what are you picking?
I would just love Centennial to get there just because I know how much it would mean to Coach Duax.
So we're all going with our heart there. I like it.
Yeah, with my heart there.
We haven't really done like much service to the eastern side of the state, have we? And we haven't covered anyone, haven't. And we haven't even like really
other than the silliness,
other than like the red card stuff, right? So I'll go with Iowa City High. They got the best record, 10-2.
I love it.
Okay. Substate number 8. The way Valley's playing right now, I'll just say it. They're gonna walk through this. I hate to say it. Lounsbury.
Yeah.
John Mullen, sorry, but
yeah, and I watched Urbandale play Dowling and they were off the pace.
16 Valley 16-3. That's pretty crazy. We were at that Dowling Valley game, right? Where Dowling pumped them.
Yeah, and we weren't super high on Valley at the time, but they've gone on a bit of a hot streak.
Yeah.
Preston Knipsey was banging the goals. He's got like 30
Does
So
he really? He's got 30
yeah, that's a
goals.
lot of high school
I
goals.
think they've
no
won
matter what.
14 in a row or 16 in a row, something just absurd.
Yeah.
That Dowling, the size of the Dowling field, I think hurt them that night, didn't it?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, the Tigers are always dangerous come tournament time, but they're in a bit of a. It's been a while since they've performed, and I don't think they've gotten out of the first round for a while.
Yeah. You're almost as annoying as Blake is when talking about the Tigers as he is talking about the Dragons. So let's move on.
All right, well, there it is. Anything else you guys got to say? Those are the 4A substates. We'll be back next week talking, obviously, substate, semis, finals, and then we talked a little 3A last week. Maybe we'll dabble into the girls' side, the smaller school side. Just you have to stay tuned and watch, but I don't know what else, Benny.
No, it's great. Sign up for golf, please. We want to play golf with you and run around with the shot ski.